Food, clothing, architecture? Not the way you're selling it. Giving architects and landscape architects the tools and strategies to be seen, heard, and valued in the marketplace, and telling the stories of leaders building thriving design firms and attracting their ideal clients. This is From Architecture to PROFITecture. I'm your host, Jay Krakowski. Let's get started. Welcome, fellow PROFITects, to the show. Glad to have you with me. I was perusing social media this week, well, every week really, and whether you're following me or I'm following you or not, I do poke around on different architects and landscape architects pages, and do the same over on Facebook, a little bit on LinkedIn, and I always am keen to dig into the language of their profiles and how they represent themselves. And a lot of times I also bounce over to the websites to see how they're set up, how they're presenting themselves. So a few things that I've found, coupled with a training that I went through recently from Dave Hollis, husband of Ms. Rachel Hollis and the Hollis Co. And he presented a pyramid, an ascension model, if you will, from Abraham Maslow. He was a psychologist in the early 20th century that he called his hierarchy of needs. And I thought there was some interesting correlation between the two in how we market our design firms, and maybe could provide some insight into why you're not attracting your ideal clients, or why you seem to be fighting tooth and nail to get the fees that we all know you're worth. So very quickly, I do want to go through that pyramid, and then I'll expand on how I think you could use it to your benefit to review or potentially change the language of your marketing, whether that's on your website, whether that's in your social media profiles, to help you attract and connect with those ideal clients. So at the base level, you've got your basic needs, as I hinted at in the intro: food, clothing, shelter. He adds rest in here. Those are your physiological needs, the needs of being a living human being. And just above that comes safety and security, being able to live in a safe place and provide for your family. Those are basic needs. It's certainly hard to argue against those. And the issue comes in when your marketing is at that basic level. If you're simply listing services, if you're simply listing credentials, well, you're putting yourself out there as a commodity. And if A, then B. If I need a kitchen, then I call architect. Well, we all know that folks don't buy based on, at least most of the time, they don't buy just based on a straight need when it comes to design services. Design services are simply not a basic human need to keep our hearts beating and our lungs breathing. So that begs the question: why would you rely on that kind of basic language in your marketing materials? Now, to move a step above that, you get into the psychological needs. Those are relationships. That's our family. That's our friends. That's even our colleagues at work and how we connect with them. And then moving inward a little bit from there are our esteem needs, self-esteem. That's accomplishment. That's prestige and pride. So that's a whole internal fulfillment, a layer of internal fulfillment that I certainly think we should strive for to hit with our marketing language. And then the top of the pyramid becomes self-fulfillment, self-actualization. I've seen it called elsewhere. And that's getting into the creative. That's a lot of times getting into the notion of luxury, that your design services are a luxury. And this is where marketing language goes a ways away from from saying what you do or even who you serve. I mean, it's been beaten to death 1,000 times, but think different for Apple. Just do it for Nike. And if you look at pretty much any luxury car commercial, they're hardly talking about how they built the car or what the car costs or anything like that. They're appealing to this much higher level. Now, when you think about that highest level in terms of architectural, landscape architectural design services, there's a real risk of going off the deep end, of getting so deep in jargon that we learned in school and from our mentors that it's completely unrelatable to most of our clients, be that residential or be that a larger corporate or commercial client, where they're almost looking at you funny, but they know, they get the sense that you are a great design firm, a great architect, landscape architect. But there's a risk that you can go too far with the fancy, with the existential, with the jargon, and almost alienate potential clients that way. So what I wanted to touch on and what that means for marketing, where I see the sweet spot is the figurative and the literal middle of this pyramid. When you're getting into the psychological needs, when you're getting into that feeling of belonging, when you're talking about your kitchen designs not as necessarily an efficient use of space or the appliances that are the trend of the day, but rather it's a place for family to meet. It's the place where holidays and celebrations tend to congregate towards. And there's another, as an aside, it's almost interesting that the kitchen is often the most important room of the house, and what most basic need does that fulfill? That's your food and water. So, but again, that's an aside. But if you're marketing kitchen designs, are you going to simply market the nuts and bolts of it and the efficiencies that you provide and the number of years that you've been designing kitchens? No. It's so much more effective to talk about family and to talk about the impact that it has on your clients and the impact that your client's ability to now enjoy their spaces has had on your fulfillment as a design professional, has allowed you to build your firm to where it is in your marketplace, be it local or larger than that. So again, that's where I see the sweet spot. And I just wanted to touch on that briefly because I thought that this pyramid was pretty interesting how it tied into those who are more successful with their marketing versus those who seem to be struggling and scraping by and fighting for clients because they're appealing to them on simply these basic levels. And when you work from language that is simply addressing food, clothing, and shelter, you're seen as a commodity. And when there's a whole list of commodity providers, aka architects, in local Google business listings or anywhere else, the only area that a potential client would have to go to differentiate between you and someone else is price. Because you're fulfilling those needs just the same as anyone else, going through the same schematic design documentation, construction oversight process. Well, they're going to go to price first. And you're either going to be caught up in this race to the bottom, and I know that's an overused term too, but you're going to be caught up in it, or you're going to be fighting tooth and nail just to get work at all. And I don't want that for you, and I know you don't want that for you. So take a look at this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, MASLOW. Again, he was a psychologist from the early 20th century, but it's something to think about and something to overlay against your marketing materials. And I found it interesting, and I hope that's a help for you. Now we can get into housekeeping and the boring stuff. Again, this is numero uno, and I'm really excited to bring this show to you. As mentioned in the intro, we're going to dig into social media marketing. We're going to dig into online video, which I'm so passionate about. We're going to dig into email marketing and marketing strategy. And then I want to speak to you. I want to bring you on the show. Practitioners that are getting out there and building design firms and working through the noise that is online marketing in 2020 here to build more fulfilling and ultimately more profitable design firms. As a formatting note, again, we are live here, primarily live, Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. I may not be able to go live every Thursday, but that's the goal, because I would love to hear from you directly. I want you to have the ability to come in and comment when it's relevant to the topic at hand. And then it'll get pushed out video-wise to YouTube and audio-wise to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, the whole gambit of them. But again, if you're interested and want to comment, jump on live, LinkedIn or Facebook. Love to hear from you. Next week, we're going to be talking about the topic, which is more important in 2020, your email list or your social media profile. So stay tuned for that. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I will leave you with the last note here that your success is inevitable. Go out and make it a great week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you stay up to date with future episodes. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn at Jake Krakowski. And for show notes and much more, visit PROFITecturebydesign.com/podcast.